Gotta wait one more minute. I'll call to order the committee of the whole meeting at 5:30. First up, review of regular meeting agenda, but I'll just throw in, obviously, I'm not Mayor Pro Tem Mercer. He had a lot going on today, and so he asked if I could share the cow for us today, if that's okay with everybody. So I think the only thing he was hoping, and this goes into review a regular meeting agenda, is that we pull council procedures from the regular meeting today. I think he wanted to be here to walk us through that, so we'll just need to make a motion during additions and corrections during the regular council meeting for that. Were there any other issues with anything for our regular meeting agenda tonight that you wanted to bring up now? Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Our first item is a presentation on HB 2015 Public Safety Sales Tax and Grant from the Criminal Justice Training Commission with our city administrator, Cynthia McNabb.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. This is the beginning conversation on HB 2015, which is the Public Safety Sales Tax, as well as the Criminal Justice Training Commission grant. So this was the outcome of about 4 or 5 different bills that went through the state legislature this last legislative session. So I will tell you that I cribbed almost the entire presentation from the Association of Washington Cities. They did a joint presentation between the Criminal Justice Training Commission and AWC a couple weeks ago. It was very thorough. They did such a nice job that I'm using their slides. I've added a couple other things and a couple comments. But to kind of begin the discussion, so the last meeting we met with our election consultant on what a potential levy might look like for either public safety funding or for parks initiatives. Because we'd only noticed that as a special meeting and it was very specific to talking about the election consultant and levy work, it was not appropriate to bring up this content. So here we are. These funding sources potentially would impact what kind of levy you would potentially seek in the future. It would certainly, if we put into place either the public safety sales tax and or the combination of the grants, allow us to build capacity for public safety funding into next year, potentially preserving our school resource officer position, as well as some of the other new officer hirings, because the grant program allows for that. So let's walk through the slides. I'm going to answer questions as best as I can, knowing full well that I am not the expert on this. And they're still developing the expertise. So the CJTC just recently hired somebody to administer this program. They have not finished the application on the CJTC website. So there's still a lot unknown about the program, but they're working really hard to get as much information into our hands so that we can make informed decisions. So next slide. Okay, so the way this program works is there are 2 funding mechanisms. The first is the sales tax, which allows for us to do a 0.1% local sales tax authority for broad public safety and criminal justice needs. The second part of the program is a grant. It's a 3-year grant. The money would have to be spent in that 3-year period. It is funded through the state legislature of $100 million for things like hiring, retraining, training new police officers, and co-responders. The slide to the left indicates that these 2 things are they are attached to one another. You cannot get the grants and access that funding if you do not put in place the criminal justice sales tax. So it's the same application that will come out from CJTC, and Chief and I have talked quite a bit about this, and we already put in our kind of interest form and being on the list of jurisdictions that are interested in this. That came out a couple of weeks ago. But you cannot get the grant if the city does not put in and implement the sales tax. So you have this pot of money, and my guess, and I haven't spoken to our legislature on it, but I think what the legislature wanted to do is ensure the jurisdictions that sought the grant money had some skin in the game too.
Absolutely, that's exactly it.
And so these things are correlated with each other, and you, in order to meet the grant criteria, you also have to meet sales tax criteria, the same criteria to access both programs. Next slide. So what this allows us to do is it allows the legislative body of a city and or county to establish a local option for 0.1% sales and use tax. To be eligible, cities must meet the same requirements laid out for grant eligibility. So they have a little formula here for every $100 in sales. We would receive about 10 cents in revenue. And if we could go back really quick. I just put up here a note. So the potential revenue for the sales tax for Duval is between 200,000 and 250,000. We generated that number from our transportation benefit district. We have a sales tax for that at 0.2%. And so we more or less have to, we looked at the last 5 years of our sales tax revenue through that program. We estimate between 200,000 and 250,000 from just a criminal justice sales tax. So that's through the next slide. And then coming up to the next one. Okay, and then the next one, yep, there we go. So couple facts on this, and the slide to the right is the most important one for the purposes of this conversation. So quick facts, the tax can be imposed for the first time out of this legislative session through councilmanic action through June 30, 2028. So this is not a voter initiative. This is a city council decided action. With a caveat that you cannot have previously put this on a ballot and lost, which doesn't apply to. The sales tax can be used for anything broadly defined as criminal justice purposes. It is permanent, so it'll just always be part of our sales tax makeup. And then the requirements, the city and county can only collect a tax if it meets the requirements of the CJTC grant, and there'll be more information in a slide deck coming up. It's stackable. So some of you may have seen that King County has already implemented it. And there was a lot of confusion initially about the program, that if the county initiated it, does that mean that it kind of occupied the entire field and that cities couldn't also get the sales tax? And that's not the case. They stack on each other. So the county can do it as well as all the jurisdictions in King County. They stack upon each other. So looking at the timeline, so to the slide to the right, you have to initiate and implement by council action 75 days prior to the collection. So before the new sales tax would go into effect, cities must give the Department of Revenue 75 days notice of the passed ordinance and include a copy of it. So if we wanted to collect criminal justice sales tax in November or in January, we need to notify DOR of a passed ordinance by October 18th. So time is of the essence on this if you want it in time to have the revenue for January. And then the rest of the timeline is spelled out if the kind of different dates that are associated with the Department of Revenue tax collection. Next slide. So I included this as well. This wasn't in the presentation, but I thought it was useful information where Duval sits relative to King County, and an incorporated King County with our current sales tax rate for all the cities and local areas. So Duval is at 0.09%. There are a couple jurisdictions that are lower than us, but by and large, everybody's either 0.9 or above, and most are actually above Duval in terms of the sales tax load here in King County. Next slide. Okay, so quick facts about the grant. So that's the sales tax. You have to do it first before you can consider applying for the grant. So there's $100 million right now in a grant pool that will be administered by the Criminal Justice Training Commission for 3 years. The grants are different than the sales tax. So the sales tax can be broadly used for any criminal justice purpose. That's not the case with the grants. The grants are for some very specific things. So hiring, new officer hiring, co-responder recruiting, hiring and retention. Paying for lateral hires through the grant is prohibited. So these would be for new officers coming in or new programs around co-response, so mental health services. Training, we can use the grant for training, so use of force, de-escalation, crisis intervention, trauma-informed trainings for officers to comply with the CJTC's required trainings. There's a lot of them. This would actually be very helpful for Duval. A lot of the police department budget goes into those required trainings, so it could offset what we pay for officer training and potentially augment the amount of training that we're able to offer our officers. And then grants can be used for other broader law enforcement and public safety efforts. So the grant is written to also allow for emergency management activities and some other kind of general public safety activities, but again, not for maintaining current staffing or paying for current staffing of either lateral or existing employees. Of those new hires, the grant can cover 75% of the salary and benefits for up to 3 years. Touched on this before, the city and county must receive funding from an existing sales tax, comply with policies on agency leader qualifications and volunteer limitations. Chief well exceeds these, so we double check mark on that one. And implement training and data reporting in alignment with CJTC capacity. The other thing that's interesting about the grant, so it's really important for us to think about as we develop a grant application, is that if your application asks to begin a program for co-response, you get priority. So you are placed in a priority 1 category if your grant application has an element of mental health services and other co-response services. So just thinking about how you stack up about, among all of the Washington state agencies that will be going out for this, ensuring that we have some element of mental health services, which is not unique for Duval. We haven't had the opportunity to replace. We used to have a mental health service in cooperation through an ILA with Redmond, but that person left and went to King County and we haven't been able to replace those services. So this wouldn't be a new program for Duval, but it's important if we want to prioritize our grant application. Next slide. Okay, so requirements to apply for both. There's a bunch of training requirements that are needed to be able to even apply for the grant. Use of force policies, use of force databases, court-ordered firearm relinquishment, crisis intervention training, the gender-based violence training. The CJTC hasn't actually fully developed that training, but if you apply for the grant, you're expected to do it within a certain period of time. I highlighted on the right side, public safety sales tax. You have to receive funds from an authorized public safety or criminal justice sales tax. Your chief has to be CJTC certified with no felony convictions. The next piece is actually going to be a change for Duval, and I want to make sure we highlight it. It wouldn't be a city decision. In order to get either the sales tax or the grant, you can't have reserve officers. You can have volunteers to help with activities in the police department, but you cannot have a reserve officer that carries a weapon. And they can't do any criminal justice activities. So I think what the state was trying to do is, they have a lot of training requirements and certification requirements to access this funding. What they didn't want is to provide funding to cities to staff their police department largely with volunteers. This is to help cities fund police services. So if a city is relying heavily on volunteer reserve officers, the state didn't want to, continue to fund a city that had mostly volunteer officers. So we cannot have armed reserve officers as part of this program.
Mayor, And I would just say that, we have, really had a lot of value, out of our reserve officer, and I think this is something that, with proper attention, even in a short session, could get amended out of the law, or an amendment that accommodates for cities like ours, where we're never gonna have, full sales tax to cover out all the gaps, and that we do have qualified, longtime qualified reserve officer, or to at least grandfather in the meantime. And I think that would be a wise use of our lobbyists' time as well, because this is going to be an issue not just for us, but for others. But to the city administrator's point, most definitely, this is intended to keep the cities and jurisdictions from relying on volunteers, much like what happens in fire districts across the state, which is creating significantly increasingly unsafe conditions for fire and medical, by relying on all volunteer departments. So it's starting to stem that systemic issue statewide.
Oh, yes, Commissioner. Oh, sorry.
Well, I can say it's for the end, if that's better.
Yeah, so let's get through it then. That is a change for us. It doesn't mean that we can't have volunteers in our police department. It's just really limited activities for what volunteers can do. Next, and I think that's it actually, 'cause I think my next slide. Okay, yeah.
Councilmember Schaefer, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, so we, as the mayor stated, we do have a reserve officer that I think brings a lot of value to the city. And in the short term, and we are talking kind of short term here, what would we propose there for him? Go ahead. Chief.
I had discussions with him regarding his service for the city and what he's done in the past, and there are some very strict guidelines in the House bill about what a volunteer can do, and a reserve officer falls in the category of a volunteer. They can't be on, they can enforce laws, they can't look like a police officer. It has to be strictly volunteer, according to the House bill. And I had that conversation with him going through that process. It is something that we may implement a volunteer program. We have to have a policy in place on how we do that. You could fall right into that volunteer program and still have some benefit for our agency.
Okay.
Yeah, follow.
I do. Is there a possibility of hiring him part-time as a part-time? No.
He does not meet that requirement. In order for somebody to be either a part-time or somebody that passes that period, they have to be academy qualified. They have to go through certain training for that. He has been through a reserve academy, which is something that's required for a reserve officer. He still complies with all our training, everything else that we do. It's just that based on this House bill, there's some very strong restrictions for volunteers. And it is something that has been a benefit over the years, but we are probably in a better place agency-wise now to absorb some of those things that he did. And I'm not saying that that's not a benefit to us, but our staffing is at a better level than I've ever seen it here.
Yeah.
Our personnel are more self-sufficient. Law enforcement is more complicated than it was 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. He's been with us for 19 years.
Yeah.
He has had great service for the city. He's well liked by the citizens here. I also have to look out for the benefit of the agency and the agency's future. That's part of my discussion with him, was that in order for our agency to grow, in order for our agency to meet some of the future, I have to look out for the agency as a whole. And in order for us to work this grant system, that is one possibility.
Sure. And as we all know, he's a bit of an icon around town,
Right.
and very well.
It doesn't mean that he has to separate from the city.
Yeah.
There are other things that we have in place that we could probably utilize his services of all.
Other questions or discussion? Councilmember Knopfler?
Yeah, I'm just curious, so it says there's 3 ways to qualify, 3 sales tax. That could be used to qualify, is that right?
Yeah, so what it is your county, so how cities qualify, if your county has implemented one of 3 sales tax initiatives, which King County has. There's only 2 counties in the entire state that don't have some criminal justice statute that would otherwise qualify you. It's kind of complicated language, but yeah.
So we're already qualified.
We're already qualified to be able to do the councilmanic action. You could, if you were in, I think it's Clickitat and Wahkiakum County, those counties haven't adopted one of 3 statutes. So those cities in those counties are not qualified to apply for this in a councilmanic way. They would have to do a ballot initiative.
So I guess, would you mind going back? Cause I think I'm not explaining what I'm asking quite. So go back. Almost to the beginning. Right there. So it says to get the grant, it says we would need to levy or receive one of 3 available public safety or criminal sales taxes first. So it doesn't say we need to do that in order to do a councilmatic one. It's saying in order to qualify for the grant, we would need to levy or receive one of 3 available public safety or criminal justice sales taxes. So it sounds like there's potentially 3 options to qualify. And so I guess I'm wondering, what are those?
The other items, and there's another slide that I can find and set it out after the meeting. The other options were prior to this legislative session for different things, and King County has none of the 3. This is different. Those are ballot initiative statutes. This is a councilmanic sales tax initiative.
So.
So I'm gonna pause also. I'm not an expert in this. I have probably exhausted my understanding of those other criminal justice statutes, so I'd have to send additional information.
I guess I just want to be 100% certain that we currently, even though the county already collects and we get a pretty large share.
No.
We don't get any funds from the county's 0.1%.
Because right now, the way the law is, and maybe that's something that's changing that I don't understand, but money received by a county under subsection 1, which is them imposing the 1%, which King County currently does. 40% must be distributed to cities in the county. So we already are getting the public part of those things, I guess.
So that is a different funding mechanism that's been in existence for a while.
Yeah.
In fact, this is totally different. The county has adopted this initiative under a totally different statute. We will not share in the county's sales tax of this. It only goes to the jurisdiction that passed an ordinance under the requirements of HB 2015.
So will we continue to get that sales tax portion that we were already getting? Like, that's not going away.
To the degree that we already receive money in, without Beth here, I can't recall if we get any of it. And if we do, it's extremely minimal.
We do. Let me see. I guess I need to understand this. So 100% as it stands right now, we would not qualify for the grant.
Well, we haven't applied for the grant. So the way this works is it is a joint application at the CJTC where you say, our council is going to do the public safety sales tax under HB 2015. We meet the qualifications of it. You then have to implement this criminal justice sales tax under HB 2015, irrespective of what those other 2 statutes have done in the past. You must do this one under this grant application. Once you pass the sales tax, you are then authorized to apply for the grant. They are interconnected.
Okay, I guess I keep looking at that 1 of 3 available. We would need to levy or receive 1 of 3 available. And so I guess I was just wondering if there are 3 options. So I guess I'm misunderstanding.
I can find the other side. So the way the Association of Washington Cities described this is your county first must have done 1 of 3 statutes. There are only 2 counties in the entire state that have not otherwise done a criminal justice program in the past. King County is not one of them. We've had one for a while. The 2 counties that don't, this program is entirely off the table for them until those counties initiate one of these tax ordinances or tax legislative activities. But every other county in the state, other than these two, are pre-ready to engage in this program.
Okay. Other questions or discussion from council? I would just say you know, similar to the transportation benefit district, I like sales tax in general because our police serve people who don't live in the city limits, that people who come to visit, people who go to our concerts, they serve people who come to our area. And sales tax captures a bit of that. A little, I don't know, additional adds in their fair share. Same with our roads, the transportation benefit district. People drive through here that don't live here, and that allows us to collect a bit from that. And I feel like it's also fairly stable as well, and it's a good source of additional revenue for this particular thing. And so I'm in favor of that. I obviously have concerns over the reserve officer stuff, and so it would be nice to talk to our lobbyists and follow up if, like, what the timeline for that is, what that looks like, and could we get it grandfathered in, because I feel very unique. And also, the last thing I would just add, and I don't know if this is still true, I thought when we still had our public safety committee going, I remember the reserve program seems like it's not like a current thing, or did they get that back up and running? Because it seemed like people who have reserve officers maybe had completed the training, but they weren't actively doing more.
Our reserve program is unique to Duval.
Mhm.
It is not similar to existing reserve programs. And this has nothing to reflect on the person that's filling that role now.
Yeah.
But our city doesn't handle that position well. It can at times be maybe a little bit of a detriment. The aspect that there are training needs and requirements that he also has to follow. And in order for that, it does increase in costs associated with that. And the standards that I expect from a reserve officer is exactly the same as what I expect of a full-time officer, because they're gonna be placed in that role. There are some areas that we need to improve on that, and we haven't done that. It has served its purpose well. I think we're beyond that now. Yeah.
City administrator, and then mayor, and then
So what I just want to end with what I'm looking for tonight, so I can plan work for the next meeting. If council is interested in having me draft proposed language, I can have that prepared for next week. The other thing, so King County's already done this. I included their ordinance in the packet. If you want to see what King County did in response to this kind of reserve thing that I think certainly from WASF's perspective, they have a statement about it. Threw some folks for a loop that this was in the legislation. It is surprisingly incredibly clear in terms of legislation. This paragraph is extremely clear about what is not allowed. Unfortunately for us in Duval. King County, as a result, before passing their ordinance, completely eliminated all of the reserves. Like eliminated the program in order to be eligible for and initiate the ordinance.
mayor.
I just am gonna strongly encourage council to move forward on this. There have been years of discussion on how to appropriately fund public safety in Washington state. There's been back and forth, good legislation, bad legislation that was well intended, you name it. And we have the lowest level of staffing of law enforcement of any state in the country. And we are finally being given a tool to make sure that we can stabilize our workforce. And we've heard loud and strong from our community that they want to keep our own police department as well as public safety as their top priority. And I think moving forward with this is in keeping with what our community has told us, what our police department has done to manage their resources as best they can and be creative in order to keep the workforce relatively stable. And this provides resiliency into our city budgeting, which will ensure that a specific amount of money will always go towards public safety. And I think that's really important. We've been working on budget resiliency really for the last 15, 16 years. And this is one of the very few areas that we have not had the tools from the legislature to build that resiliency in. It'll also build a lot more predictability for our taxpayers when it comes to tax discussions. Because if you're funding it through sales tax as the community grows, that 0.1% grows as well. It will never be enough. Costs are still gonna continue to go up. Just as everything else does in the world, but this is definitely a huge step on the right pathway. And I really do believe strongly that our community would fully support this.
So were you just wanting some head nods as to, is this something
Yeah,
council would
want
like to
work
see
on
a
it.
draft, and that way staff knows if it's worth
Yeah.
putting time
Yes,
into?
yes.
Yeah.
Please,
I'm
I'd
seeing
like
a
to-
majority
like to proceed.
consensus, are you raising your hand? Oh, okay, I just wanna make sure, Councilmember Kaplan.
So I see it's councilmatic. Is there an opportunity to ask the public if they would want to do this? Or, I mean, are we required to do it without asking the public?
I can comment on that.
I would say this council, this city, including people in this room, are very strong about putting the transportation benefit sales tax as councilmatic. And this is about health, life, and safety. So I would encourage just doing what we're all elected to do, and that's vote on policy that's good for our community and that our community supports. And take that vote.
Any other comments or? No? So I saw general head nods to see more about this in the future. And that was all in that, correct?
That's all,
Prediction?
yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next presentation on our proposed social media policy, again with City Administrator McNabb.
Okay. Good evening again. We have an opportunity to take a look at our social media policy. Hasn't been updated since, next one, come see. Is that Roman? Yeah. Here, Berlin.
Social media around back then?
Yeah. So why do it now? So one of the elements of our policy was written in 2013. Two others, there are three altogether. They don't work in coordination with each other. The two others were written in 2016. I would say, for the most part in 2013, they captured a lot of what was needed. They're fairly comprehensive, but now they're slightly outdated. And in some ways significantly outdated. So the social media policies for the city were broken up into three separate policies. There was a council policy drafted in 2016. When we took a look and surveyed comparable cities, almost every city had all of their social media policies in a single place, including council, including staff, so that the public, actually probably more for the public, could find everything they needed about social media in a single place. The other thing, after talking to Oscar, we kind of had this on the list of things to do. It's time for a legal refresh. So First Amendment issues, privacy issues, those things need to be updated over time. And it was a good opportunity to take a First Amendment and privacy look at the social media policies that we had. Social media and our use has also evolved. So we wanted to capture how we currently use social media. So for instance, the operating procedures that were in existence, I think from 2013, said how we use Facebook. We don't only use Facebook. We have a lot more platforms that we consider social media, whether that we don't post on TikTok yet, but maybe someday. But our mobile app would be considered social media. Instagram is considered social media. Our website and the way we function and put pop-up ads on our website is considered social media. So we wanted to be clear about our uses and what we do. And then the other thing is that we wanted to make sure that it met best practices for moderation standards. So cities moderate. There probably isn't a city in Washington State, or I don't know the rest of the country, that doesn't in some capacity moderate social media. And so we wanted to be really clear about what our policy did for moderation, what it spoke to, and then to collect best practices. So we put together a draft social media policy. It went through internal review, and then it was sent to our legal counsel. Oscar, who also reviewed it last week, and that is the draft that you have in your packet. So I just want to highlight a couple key sections because these are the things that I think are most relevant for, oh, next slide, Kelsey. For your review. So being really clear about what the fundamental purpose of social media is. It's a limited public forum. We do not host social media for an open public dialogue on all topics. That's for other uses. This is for the city to give information and for residents to communicate with the city when appropriate. There are rules in the draft social media policy around administration and moderation by the city. This is really for the public. It helps explain how and when the city will moderate, so there's no confusion. So for instance, when we sometimes hide content because it's either not relevant to the topic or inflammatory in some way where it doesn't meet certain criteria. There's a presumption that we delete that. We're not allowed to delete public comments. We don't delete public comments. We preserve them all. But having a refreshed policy that's really clear about what we do with social media is important. And so we tried to make that clear. The other thing that comes up from time to time is whether the city responds to all comments. It is not best practice for the city to respond to social media comments. And we don't unless we respond to clarify confusion or to provide a very specific fact about something that we see on social media. But we do not engage in dialogue on social media as a general rule. It's not best practice. And then finally, there's a right to appeal if content is hidden, which we didn't have before. So if somebody has our content hidden, but they think either it's relevant or there's some reason that they would prefer not to have their content hidden, there's a right to question that decision to hide content. And so we've added that into the policy as well. I think it was yesterday, I sent you all, we have had one comment to the draft policy. I also provided some information about how internally we manage our social media team and the decisions around who moderates and who's trained for social media. And so at this point, this is a first touch. Please take a look at what's written. If you have comments, questions, I will mark the draft, and for the next meeting, you'll have a draft with comments and in build draft form, so you can see everybody's requested changes, and I'll bring that to the next. So happy to answer any questions on it.
Councilmember Schaefer?
I did glance through it. I did not read the details. And I do support the changes, by the way. My question, and I guess probably comment too, is related to use of AI in our social media. Is there anything in this update that addresses the city's states the city won't use that or anything of that nature? Or should there be?
That's a really good question. So the policy doesn't address use of AI. AI is, I think, a large term that captures a lot of different tools. So I will say when I don't post on social media, I don't even know how to access social media accounts, which is a good thing. But when I create a post, I will sometimes run it through Grammarly and other tools to make sure that the grammar is correct, that it's at a reading level. That's using AI. And so it's not all ChatGPT and Copilot. Sometimes it's other tools that are broadly defined as AI. So we have not prohibited the use of AI in our policy. We also, so I don't know if all of you followed in this last legislative session, but there was a fairly robust conversation among the unions and the legislature around negotiating changes with unions around the use of AI, and particularly if that use would put staff out of a job. We're not using AI in that way. I do know that sometimes we'll put something through Copilot, or I will say I speak for myself and how I use it. Sometimes I will run something through ChatGPT or Copilot to say, I phrase it this way, phrase it another, so I can compare. But that's probably the extent of our use right now.
Yeah, and I don't know of it I'm not saying it does make sense. I guess I'm just questioning, we should put something in the policy that states that. And don't ask me how to state it, because your point is well taken. AI can be as simple as a grammar check, or it can be, as complex as the ability to influence people more so than most humans, could. And it's the latter I'm concerned about, obviously. not-
Yeah, like
not the former.
hallucination.
But there's a whole area in between, to your point, too. So I don't know even how to begin to
try.
address that. Okay.
We'll go mayor and then council member now.
I was just gonna say to that point, jurisdictions are starting to come up with AI policies and how you can use AI as a government entity. There's multiple reasons for that, not the least of which is what you just mentioned, is that somebody can use it to be persuasive. Government is not supposed to be persuasive. We're supposed to provide facts. So any good administration is going to be able to suss that out and make sure that whether it's talking about policy, in an agenda bill or what have you, that it's not using words and language that is persuasive, but it's factual in and of itself. The other side of this is that when local governments start using AI, there becomes a significant public records retention requirement, which is extraordinarily expensive and difficult to track. So what I'm seeing so far is agencies being very limited in the scope and what AI can be used for, the inability to download apps, so nothing's stored on your computer, and things like that are appropriate and protect the jurisdiction. And that includes people who use ChatGPT for things that are non-work related that are de minimis use, but as soon as that record is created and trackable, it's a public record. So I just, that's something that the city needs to look at long-term in developing those policies.
Did you have a follow-up on the topic? I'll get to you.
So at the AWC conference, I actually attended a session around use of AI in public records requests. It's significant. So that is next up. Spoiler alert, we're gonna have an AI policy in a few months. Because we need to develop an AI policy on how to use. For the city, our use needs to be consistent with the software tools that we already have. So when you log into Microsoft 365, you have Copilot as part of the suite. You can capture your AI request, your Copilot request through your login. But when you start using other things you can't create a log of what you have. So for me, for instance, if I wrote a social media post for Rita that said, come to Splash Day, and I put it through Copilot and said, what's another word for Splash Day? My account will log that I asked it. And then if somebody asked for our AI logs, we can recreate it. So we need to, a lot of cities right now, because this is a brand new area of law. It just happened recently that there was a case on a public records request. So a lot of cities right now are doing that policy work as a result of the public records.
Councilmember Netflix?
Yeah, maybe I'm missing something in here, but city staff often, I think, using the city of Duval login, will comment on other posts. So it's not just responding to comment on a post that was made by the city on the city's website or on the city's social media. It would be, like I saw one the other day where an organization did some volunteer work and the city went onto their post and commented. So where is going on to other posts that weren't posted by the city and commenting? Where is that covered about what role the city has to reach out and comment outside of their own social media?
Well, if you think it's missing, provide some language and we're happy to put it in if you don't think our social media.
Well, maybe it does.
captures it.
I don't know. I'm asking you if it does, because I don't see it. So like can our city staff under the using the city of Duval comment outside?
So
Maybe
if
respond on something that seems sort of city related on the discussion board and reply to something there. Could they go, like I said, there was an organization that did the volunteer work, City of Duval went and posted on theirs saying, hey, thank you, that was so great, something like that. I'm just trying to understand, does this cover it? And if it doesn't, I think there should be a policy about what's appropriate use of city staff time and city posting and commenting outside.
Yes, it is my belief that it would cover it because we define the city's use of social media. That doesn't say exclusively the city's use of our own social media. It also talks about city use of social media as a broad category, which would include the city commenting on nonprofit organizations. And so I think our current, the draft covers that. But if you think we can describe it better, I'm happy to receive a comment. But it is intended and anticipated that we will engage with our partner organizations like the Duval Historical Society, like anybody that we're in partnership with in our nonprofits. We intentionally, or the city of Carnation, we're asked often to augment their message or the Historical Society's message or the Rotary. We do not intend to limit our ability to work with our partners to augment their message. That's not the intention of this policy.
So that was, I understand that part, which is going outside of our own, but I think the part that I'm curious much about, like if there's things happening on the discussion board, what is our role to jump in and engage in that kind of, there's two pieces to that.
Mayor, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, I would say, just in general, if city business is being discussed and perhaps there's misinformation or information is not getting shared out with the public, city staff absolutely has a right under to respond and correct information and share information with the public, regardless of the forum. We have social media archiving software that should, if as long as you're logged into a city account, it's automatically logged in those public records, and that is being tracked. So there should not be any issue, and it should be expected. In fact, that's one of the things that I worked on quite a bit when I first became mayor, is trying to create a pathway forward to stop, to provide factual information quickly and stop rumors that were untrue online by redirecting people back to factual sources.
So I think Rita just sent me a comment that the city of Duval made, and it was Rita, because she has a responsibility for that, like for the troop, like the troop that did all that volunteer work, you know, city, like commending the work. I mean, it is anticipated that we are going to engage in that way with our partner organizations, and it is anticipated that our use of social media is to provide factual, relevant information and to disseminate, you know, information that might, you know, answer a question that we see on social media.
If I may add as well, the exception there is that city staff should not be commenting on anything related to social business, anything related to city business on social media using their personal accounts. That would be a violation of existing policy as it stands right now. So the only responses to social media that you should see from the city in regards to outside organizations or the discussion group or even on our own page should be from those official City of Duval accounts. They should never be from a personal, and if they are, that's a violation of existing policy that should be brought up to me or the city administrator to have discussions with those staff people. So if you do ever see that, that's important as well, because that is a public record issue as well as a violation of existing policy if that were to occur.
Other questions or comment? I have some and then I'll, oh, actually, Councilor Kupel, I'll go and then we'll get back to you.
I just looked through and page 7 and 8 kind of addressed it, but it's only for city social media site. It doesn't say anything about broader Facebook stuff, so maybe you should just.
We can clarify that. Yeah, happy to.
Clarify it.
The only thing I had, I think under definitions, the definitions, number 1, city officials. I just noticed, I think, I get back to it. I'm wondering if we need to add commissions in there, because I think it just said members of any council or committee, but we have commissions as well. So I thought we could add that.
Okay.
And then one little typo on page 5, E sub L, it says commends. from children under 13. I think it's supposed to say comments from children under 13, I'm just guessing. And then my comments or thought, so I'd seen that, you know, and I have an official council member page and all comments, and then reading that and thinking, okay, and things were so different when it used to just be stay off social media, period, don't do anything, it's terrifying. And I'm assuming that now there's quite a bit more case law that's kind of understandable, like, okay, here's what is good and not good. So my question is mostly if we shouldn't, best practice is to just not comment, but you can like something. Is it a different thing to share it to your official page and add your thoughts on it and say this, because most of the time my comments, for example, are this is so amazing or something like that, or gratitude for whatever had happened. So is it viewed differently to share posts to your own official page and add a commentary if you wanted to, rather than commenting on like what kind of becomes the forum? And if you don't know, we can follow back up.
So Oscar and I talked a little bit about that. I mean, I think best practice is to share from your official,
Yeah.
but as you have a First Amendment right to engage in a limited public forum.
Mhm.
And that has been tested more recently than in the past. And so we have to be really clear about not limiting even council members' First Amendment rights to engage in limited public forums. So this policy kind of threads the needle
Mhm.
and doesn't have any prohibitions around council members as individuals commenting on the city page, because we took a look at it from a First Amendment perspective. Best practice, though, is different than your First Amendment practice.
Mhm.
Best practice is to use your official page to comment on city business, but we wanted to be very careful about First Amendment
Yeah,
rights.
so my quick follow-up is that, so I use an official page. And so I was curious, is that what it was referring to when it said you shouldn't comment, or was it referring to people's personal accounts? Or is it kind of both?
It depends on what you're commenting. If
Okay.
you are commenting on something, it should be very clear, and this is not protected, this is the element of First Amendment that I think is fairly clear.
Mhm.
You should not comment on a city social media post as an elected official and purport to speak for the city.
Right,
You're
okay.
not allowed to do that. You are one body, one
Mhm.
voice. So you cannot speak for the city on social media. As Amy McHenry, you can speak as Amy McHenry
Mhm.
on our official page, or you can share to your official page.
Mhm.
But you
Okay.
cannot speak for
Yeah.
council or for the city as council members.
Yeah, that makes sense. You had another thing?
As long as no one else has.
Nothing so far? Okay, Councilmember Nathan?
So I think, what I see happen sometimes is either city business will start getting discussed on Facebook. Very rarely the city of Duval, well, I don't know if recently they have, will engage on the discussion board or somewhere else. But then there's other times where the city of Duval gets tagged, right, in a post. And sometimes I feel like I've seen the city respond, other times I don't. I mean, it should be obvious that we don't have someone 24/7, you know, working to respond on Facebook. So what level of expectation, and should we put it on here that, you know, the city gets tagged, we may or may not respond, or how do they decide how we respond? You know, sometimes you'll see something, the city will get tagged, and then you'll see people be like, I tagged the city and the city didn't respond, you know, why isn't the city responding? And people start to get agitated and feel like their question isn't being answered.
So we did try to put elements of that in the policy, so you'll see, if we tried to set out some expectations that people can expect from us. We are not gonna monitor social media. So we said, our activities are during the workday for city staff. That doesn't mean that in an emergency, Luke and I and Rita, we always have our cell phone. I mean, there are times I'm not gonna answer my cell phone if somebody calls me at 10 o'clock at night, but for the most part, I'm reachable. And so there are going to be times, if it's an emergent issue that's health, life, safety, that the city will actively get on social media. But we tried to put in the policy, here are the areas where we're not going to respond. We're not going to monitor this all the time. We're not gonna respond to everything that we're tagged in. Our role is to provide factual information. If we see a whole thing where we keep getting tagged and it's just somebody's opinion, we're not gonna respond. We don't wanna get involved in that. Similarly, our kind of rule of thumb is if people put comments on a city social media posts that are topical but unpleasant, and I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months. The community polices each other. It's not up to the city to opine on different opinions, and we're just not going to.
There are comments.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Oh, but we did add, I just wanted to say, we did add elements of setting expectations for how we would engage.
And I would just note as well that just because somebody tags the city doesn't mean the city gets a notification. They don't always come through and people know that. And so best practice has and always will be that somebody in the know ask people to email the city with their question. Because that has been the standard for a long period of time. And it needs to stay that way because it is not possible to have somebody monitor the social media 24/7. And to the city administrator's point, a lot of times arguments get put up online, especially on the city pages or straight opinion. If the city's provided the facts, there's nothing else for the city to respond to unless there's a specific question that's asking about the fact. And so keeping that line of facts only is really critical in everything that comes out from the official city social media.
City administrator?
And I would add to that, if the facts are easily found, we're not going to respond to every question that gets asked on social media. So we see it often where we put out a bunch of information and then we'll see a social media post that asks a question that is either a repeat of multiple social media posts or things you can easily see on the website. We're not going to use our limited resources to respond to every single question that we get in the comments because this is not we don't have a communications coordinator anymore. So this is work that now a team does together and all of us have other jobs. And Rita has taken on the burden of managing our social media, but as you all know, Rita has a very full-time job. So
Just one quick recheck. No other questions? We're good. Okay, go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah,
Knapp.
I think I discovered why I keep struggling here, because under definitions, it says city social media sites are social media sites established and maintained by the city, where the city has control over the content. And so a lot of this seems to apply to comments, posts, responses on city social media sites. And so I feel like that is kind of the overarching scope. And so that's why my question was, when we go outside of ours, and so that's my concern, is that this is really, the scope seems to be comments, posts that happen within the city's managed group, and I think that's what you saw. Councilmember Kupfel also saw, and so I'm just concerned, maybe we need to make sure.
yeah, no, that's great. I mean, if you see flaws in it or you see where I haven't captured something that I should, I mean, this is a first touch. That's why I draft and send it to you all for review. So if you think there's an element of our activity that didn't get included, I'm happy to add language. I mean, there's no rush on this policy other than it's important work to get done. It's time to get it done. But yeah, I mean, we'll continue to iterate off of it. But from a administration standpoint, it is our intent to partner with other organizations and augment their voice, mainly our nonprofits and our city partners. This policy is not intended to limit our activities.
Yeah, and I think that you can either, possibly add another little blurb explaining that, or alternatively, I don't know if other. I didn't read carefully through some of I think you attached a couple other policies from other cities, but. So in my world, how I view social media, the comments you make on other pages or in groups are all attached to your profile. So that's what, the only thing like digging in a little more to that, we may not need to add another blurb because it might already be considered like technically, legally, maybe even a part of our profile. So I don't know how you grab that data. I know Facebook, you can download all your data
Yeah, we have all of
regularly. And
that.
so I mean, those, it does get recorded and there are records. So I don't know that we would need to over explain that in here, but also I don't think it would hurt to add more explanation to clarify it. Councilmember Kufel.
You pretty much
Oh.
covered it. The only thing I would add is, now that we have this wonderful app, I just, a lot of times on Facebook, if somebody's got something factually wrong, I'll be like, download the the default app. That'll pretty much answer all your questions.
Right.
No, this is great feedback, so I'll incorporate it all and get a new draft out to you all.
All right. I don't see any other hands, so that's great, thank you. With that, we'll go to our last item. And this is a project update on the maintenance yard with Director Laniszewski. And he's online.
Good evening, folks. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you for letting me be abroad here. Not that I would rather be anywhere else, but it's better than shopping, which is where they're at now. We're in Boise, so we're deploying a kid to school tomorrow. So here is fine at the hotel doing work. So for the record, Steve Laniszewski, Public Works. This is an update to sort of summarize the last year and a half's work, not only on the property for the park expansion, Big Rock Wallfields, but the consideration of a piece of property for a yard. So next slide. So clerk, that's the wrong slide pack. If we
The
could
one that
change
was
that.
in the packet.
No, it's not this one.
That's for later. You'll get familiar with that. There should be another one that is maintenance yard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, John. So with that said, we have everybody's aware of the property. We had a big facilities report done in 2022, 2023. And then with the City Hall project with Makers on site selection, we carved off a little work for them to help facilitate review of and some early and then now kind of guidance related support for a yard on one of the two particular pieces, or none if they thought it was a bad idea. So Public Works in general, including myself, we're up to 27 staff. We have 13 in operations, and we also have 3 to 5 summer seasonals. So right now, those 18 folks are split into 2 separate properties. One is at the yard, which has about 4,000 square feet of office and facilitated space. And then the other half, which is mostly parks, is at the rec center. So next slide. So some of the findings that came out of the facilities report were that our maintenance yard, and I expect everybody here knows where the maintenance yard is, right? Kitty corner from City Hall, just down the hill, on less than a half-acre piece of property in downtown. But poor condition in the sense of operational layout and usable space, not necessarily poor condition and not kept and cleaned and maintained. But yeah, proper programmatic space is not included. We did not make up the word Quonset hut for this, but that is an adjective that has been given to that structure. So bottom line is it doesn't work. Everybody is aware of that. And some of the options that report put forward are a new site, gave some fairly preliminary costs, of which are probably fairly reasonable for the place that we're at. So next slide. So through the acquisition process with the King County Conservation Futures grants for properties adjacent to Big Rock, the bottom image shows the 2 parcels north of the existing ball field, which are commonly known to us as the Daisy parcels. And then the 2 parcels south of the new property purchase, there's a red and a yellow. Those are known as the Fink parcels. We do own all 4 of those parcels at this time. And we are working through the selection of the either most north daisy piece or the most south fink piece. So next slide. Those two parcels have the most already impacted land because some of the intent here is to harvest or keep for non-harvest some of the untapped and untouched tree canopy, sensitive areas and whatnot. So those properties were all purchased. Be simple, we own them now. We are at the point of shuffling things around once we do move forward and pick a site for the yard. We do have about, that is an old slide. We're at 1.9, the grant award, since we did get the adjustment this fall. We are at 1.9 million and a couple thousand over that for properties. We did go in and ask for an adjustment and the program gave us that. So at this time, one of the two pieces, it's either 8.25 or 850 for either of the two parcels under consideration. So next slide. So worked with makers working with us on some fit and finish. And then also we have, oh boy, I'm bad with names today. It was a long drive. Our DBA firm who's working on the design for Big Rock Phase 2. We've been tinkering with some site layouts. Makers put together a great layout. I expect if you looked in the packet, you saw that to make sure that the property, which is a little over 5 acres, can fit our needs. It looks to be fairly clean on impacts from wetlands on and off site. There's, the two homes on both of these pieces are on the pieces for consideration because again, we tried to keep it clean and make sure we weren't going to do, more environmental damage per se, because it is purchasing the other parcels through a conservation program. So we're at a point where we have some great information. We'd like to bring it forward. I know council has heard us talk about it kind of in the periphery for the last few months or year. So this is what that's about. So next slide. So what you see now, I hope it's the same. So to the left of my screen, you can see a row of houses. That's the edge of Big Rock Ridge. And then you have the daisy piece. And then you have the existing ball field. Then you have the very early draft of the new park expansion. And then you have what is considered the draft shop site, which is on the Fink piece to the far south. That gives a real good layout for movability, parking, expansion in the future, for fun on the far north edge of it. We talked about maybe the PSE fit and finish program that they asked us about a while back. So maybe next slide, John. I'll blow up on the screen. So yeah. And these are clipped. So the white space in the middle is just the two existing parks and other properties, just so you could see the two lots side by side, right? They've had some clearing on the north parcel. The actual back third has some wetland in it. So we would really only be able to use the central portion and then going back towards Big Rock on the Fink piece. I'm sorry, daisy piece. But the Fink piece on the bottom is more clean as far as environmental constraints. It has some nice mature trees. We'd work into the site to the best of our extents. And then leave the other lands in between, as forested as possible, and they can have trails through them and whatnot. The central part of the Fink site is nice and flat. We don't know of any on-site wetlands. There might be some wetlands off-site to the right of your screen, and not the Big Rock side, but the east side. So we might have a little impact on that, but it seems to be fairly well non-bothersome to what we need. Minimally developed parcels adjacent. We have talked to the neighbors to the far south. They would be pleased with a MOC instead of a park per se and more fields. So that was nice to hear from them. The bad news, the only real bad news and the con of the site on the south is we do have to extend sewer from the Big Rock piece to this piece to serve it. So that's really the only complication. Water already exists in Big Rock Road. There's a 12-inch main that comes all the way from the the Tolt head in, which is by the fire station off Big Rock. So, you know, utility is fairly, I won't say it's half price because we're doing sewer only, not water. It's a little storm improvements, and then we would have to do frontage. We would be doing frontage on the Daisy piece from Big Rock Ridge, improving the frontage on the existing park piece, and then, of course, doing the frontage on the new park piece through our process. And then we would just have the remaining bit of land on this to do. Next slide. So the makers support the layout, and they also kind of noodled on, you know, shop bays, wash bays, covered parking for equipment, storm drainage management. It is split basin, so some of it drains to the right of your screen to the east, and some back towards the west, towards Big Rock. But all in all, the 5 acres would work really well. So I am here to talk questions, and you know, the next action item we would bring back to council is just directing staff to. I put some funding numbers in there. So right now, this piece is the $850,000 purchase, and there was some draft numbers in there on how to split that up. Or we could finance a little bit on splitting it up on a range of staff, but also on a range of equipment and spatial use, which is more heavily utility based. So the numbers are in there. Next slide. I don't think I have another slide, John. I think that's it, right? Yeah. So in the council packet, there are items to talk about the values that each department would pay. I put the current budget in there along with numbers out of finance department from Beth and our end fund balances to see that we are solid at this point. But yeah, you can probably turn that off, or I don't know if we're gonna need it for some questions, but yeah, here to answer some questions and go from there.
Questions, council, comment? Councilmember Schaefer?
Two related questions, if I may. First of all, Steve, from reading the packet and from what you just said, I think your preference is the south piece, the Fink piece. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it has less impact on our current, you know, citizens. There's a lot more houses on that end. There's a lot less usable space on that piece because of some constraints. We would maintain, there is a nice 3-bay metal shop that exists. We would try to use that, clean it up, and facilitate that for storage, or maybe some large equipment. Maybe the stuff in the winter, in the summer, we don't use the sanders and some of those kind of plow units and other big bulky things to keep them, you know, out of the way, and not build another coverage structure on a piece of land that we are going to develop anyway. But yeah, the south piece, Joe and I are on the same page. Cynthia supports the layout as we have it, and I think the makers certainly likes it. Not that DA Hogan has a vote, but they think it's a good layout and use of space, because then we can integrate trails through and around wetlands on the other pieces and go around the new ball field, go around the existing ball field, and kind of wrap them all around and make some great space out there.
Good, that's good to know. Follow-up question is, this replaces everything in our existing maintenance yard, or eventually will replace everything in our existing maintenance yard, and leaves a bit for expansion as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and it would offload some space that we're occupying at the treatment plant too, right? We have some stuff stored down there, trailers, equipment, supplies. So yeah, we would get to freeing up some of their space for their needs.
Good enough. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Olin and then Naflin.
Yeah, I just had a similar question to Councilmember Schaefer, with regard to future proofing the site. How much growth, if that's what we're talking about in terms of Duval residential and commercial space, before we need a larger fleet to support that, such that this site works or no longer? How far into the future is the site good?
As far as we're concerned, it's what Duval will need for the 20-year look ahead. I can't imagine it won't carry us forward. Now we will, none of us will know in 20 years what the state and county will do, but for the time being, the full build out of the city, right now we're on a half acre, right? And this is 5. this has no layout of the office space, so whether it's single story or 2-story, those details aren't done yet. So the expandability of some of that square footage is still on, up in the air. But we would have to come to terms with some kind of number of staffing and then build back. But yeah, I don't think there's any concern on, equipment storage. We are building into this, the thought of like, if we afforded something and at one point we could have, a Vector truck or maybe a sweeper, probably not another dump truck, but maybe we replace old red, those kinds of things. So we would be doing well for the next 20 years for sure out there, if not, much longer.
Councilmember Nathan?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is, there's a current home on that site. Is there any plans for that current home? It looks like it's sort of a blank area, or maybe a
Yeah.
driveway is through it. I'm not really sure what the plan is for that.
So yeah, if that's your first question, I'll answer that one. So we had them look at that. Structurally, it is a great facility, but it's just not integratable into the operations. It's kind of right in the middle. I don't know if you want to flip back to that slide, John, maybe one slide back, or Kelsey. Yeah. Oh, no, go back forward. There you go. So it sits about where the second bay of the parking is right now. I do think we would keep the garage. It has, Councilmember Naplin, if you're familiar with the site a little bit, it has the metal garage to the left. That's not shown on here. I think that is situated in a spot where it can stay and then be used for storage of equipment. It is a nice metal pole building. So that's something that we can keep for sure. But yeah, the way the drain field sits about in the first parking lot to the bottom left of the screen. And then the house sits in the middle area, right by the driveway, and where it says 25-foot driveway and 35-foot driveway, it kind of sits right in there. So we had hoped to try to integrate it, but it's just too clunky. And I think what we learned from rebuilding, the maintenance permit center, it was more cost effective to do what we did, but we were close to a break point, another few $100,000, and it would have been, more cost effective to have torn it down and started over. So it's not going to fit as it sits now. Now, the next step will be, getting someone on board once we do bring this to council and get that moving. But we would have that full assessment of the property. Right now, we're looking at, hey, can we put what the city needs on a piece of land? And this is the piece of land we believe fits the best. And then we would have those fine details that phase. But I do not think it will fit. But it could be wrong. It could. I hate to not try to use it, which we have done, but we will do a more exhaustive, look at that when we do get into full design.
Okay, Councilmember Supple?
Yeah, on your south side, the pink site, one of your cons, you list small conical hill partially limits development area on the front half of the site. How
Yeah.
big of an impact is that? That's like 2.5 acres. Staying there.
So on that, on the image, John, the clerk has pulled up, you see the house in the image.
Yeah,
So just north of that, there's a clump of trees. So the land goes slightly uphill behind the house, but then it goes quite drastically uphill to the north edge. It's this really big knob, which we're going to integrate trails onto that. So we're going to skirt back. If you can flip one more slide forward, clerk. Nope, you were there. Nope. Yep. The trees, so you see where you have the crew building and the maintenance shop, the mustard and the kind of orange. To the left of that is that tree stand, and you see those circular lines. That's topography showing a hill. So that gets integrated into the site. It's not a huge deal. We don't expect it to be a deal breaker. Again, whether these blocks slide left, right, up, or down, this is just a preliminary layout of something that's is feasible. But we want to keep that knob. We want to keep the trees. So DA Hogan is working on that layout. We're working on spiraling a trail kind of to the top, like a vista viewpoint. And then we would have trails that skirt by the north edge of this property, then wrap around the ball fields and all that. So I think we're going to be well suited and integrated nicely when we're all said and done.
Councilmember Bufeld?
I just have a comment. I think it's a great site. I like the layout and, my suggestion would be if we could partner with or find a way to put some solar panels on top of these buildings and generate some energy for the city.
Alright,
Like I said,
my
we will look at everything when we get to it.
yeah, like, sorry about that. My comment would just be that one of my biggest concerns is, I know the Big Rock Ridge neighborhood has been dreading development, and then you saying that the other neighbors were actually more excited about this as compared to like Fields getting closer. It sounds like a win-win, so I definitely agree with the proposal, and I'm happy to hear that, because like I said, I know the opposite neighborhood was like, what's going in there? And so if it's just kind of a little more park or lower impact, I think that would, like I said, be a win-win. Did I see other hands? Councilmember Naplin and then Olin.
Yeah, this is my second question, so I think everyone's gone once. So on, I don't know if you put that slide up there, but it was on the split of the cost, which funds it would be charged to.
That's not in the slideshow, guys.
Oh, it's not.
It's in the
budget.
agenda
Okay.
bill. Yeah, it's in the agenda bill, or the
Okay.
draft agenda bill in the packet.
Yeah, so my question would be,
Mhm.
I would like to see, I guess it's not a question, it's a request. I would like to see us use all GFC capital funds from all the different accounts. We have just a tremendous amount of GFC fund available, and those are growth related funds, but they're not only to spend on growth related projects. Part of the GFC is to repay the ratepayers, which would be the money that's sitting in the operating fund. So I think this would be a perfect way that the new development would help pay back to the operating fund the growth that we've experienced. And so I would much, much rather see all of the money come out of the capital fund. I guess it'd be the
402, no, that's.
No. Capital
yeah,
is the
the
higher
other one
numbers,
says
so 407 is water.
408.
and 409. I'd much rather see it all come out of those capital funds. We have plenty of funds. Even when we looked at our financial plan, it showed that those were very healthy. I just don't want to see ratepayers have to pay for this when we have other funds readily available and legally able to pay for something like that. So I just want to.
I hear you, and I think I can't really see it because I'm on a single screen tonight. I think Oscar's in the room, but yes, GFCs are certainly eligible. And then for those who may or may not be in depth into the finance part of, funds, but utility funds, so water capital and water operational, they actually roll up into one fund when we report to the state. Yes, they have different revenue streams and they're a little different line of business, but they are, as the state considers it, one fund. That said, I just wanted to show an approximate calculation of that. Hey, funding is strong for this. We've got other things going on, but we can still afford to get this done. I think it's certainly been a long time coming. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm not opposed, and however we work this, we'll move forward and put something together.
Councilmember Olin, and then we're about out of time.
Just to follow up.
We're about out of time. I mean, I just want to make sure, would it be okay to maybe do it offline, or because we're gonna run over if we.
Is there another
I just
item?
wanted to ask that when it comes forward the next time, can that be an option? To have it come out of capital.
Make after Councilmember Olin.
Okay, Director Laniszewski, I don't know if you heard Councilmember
Yep.
Naplin. Okay, Councilmember Olin.
I had a really quick question. I mean, you mentioned a number of times trails through the park. I've had a lot of folks asking me about mountain bike trails. Are you thinking mountain bike trails? Are you thinking hiking
No.
trails?
If you go back, go forward one click, one more. There you go. It's not easy to see. So the cyan dashed line is like a preliminary wetland or wetland buffer. And then there's some wetlands that are like a light aqua. And then the gray lines you see scattered about, those are going to be trails. So those are going to be, they can be hard surface. They may be hard surface or soft surface. We'll look at options when we get to design. So there are some conditions, Councilmember Olin, on the King Conservation Futures dollars. So mountain, these are supposed to be passive trails, not active mountain bike trails. That's specifically in the language of the Conservation Futures Program contract. So now am I going to be out there on Thursday at 6 p.m. making sure there's not a mountain bike wandering through the trailway? Like, no, but the intent is we build these for walkability and wandering through nature in a passive level, not an active level. There would be a small pump track on the bigger part of the development, which would be kind of right in the central middle part of the site, and the space around the wetland that's central to the new Big Rock Phase 2. Those trails we expect to be more of a multi-use kind of layout. They're not very long. I would say it's not for you and adult kids, but sure, 3 to 8-year-olds kind of thing. But yeah, no, not mountain bike trails on this system here.
So I guess the clock on the wall is a teeny bit fast, but we are almost still out of time. Just a quick check that other council members who didn't get a second chance, we're good, and the mayor, and then we just have maybe like a minute or so.
I just wanted to address the funding question, and just like any other capital project, when it's put into the budget, administration in coordination with finance will make a recommendation as to which funds the money comes out of, because this is not the only project. You have to look at it in the context of our capital projects planning, our transportation planning, our general fund, and every other aspect of the budget. So it would be unwise to make a decision this early in the process as to where that money is going to come from. We know that we have the money on hand, but it also needs to be looked at in context of the overall budget, to make sure that the city is making the wisest decision. And I would also say, note that this decision isn't coming forward anytime soon. So this is about concepts and understanding what the cost may be and what the design is looking like, not about making budgeting decisions that will come in the actual budget process.
So with that, we're at the end of our agenda, except, we do have to go to the order, but we're really short on time. So if it's okay, maybe anything could just go to your council reports in the council meeting. And don't forget to check the written reports. Thank you, Director Laniszewski. So we're gonna go ahead and adjourn it's actually 6:56. And then I would say
We'll be back at 7.
at 7, but on the wall.
When you're ready. All right, I'd like to call the Tuesday, August 19th Duval City Council meeting to order. If you would all please rise and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please take the roll? Yes.
Mayor Oberlander,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mercer. Councilmember Olin.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember McHenry.
Here.
Councilmember Suffle.
Here.
Councilmember Neplin.
Here.
Councilmember Kufel.
Here. We have a quorum. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Go ahead, Mayor. Councilmember McHenry.
First, I would like to add an excusal to Mayor Pro Tem Mercer. He just has some extenuating family circumstances today, so I'd like to add that. And then I believe we wanted to pull the proposed amendments to council procedures from the agenda tonight, if that's still okay with everyone.
Any objections? Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And with that, we will move on to proclamations. First up, we have Women's Equality Day. Whereas on August 26, 1920, the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution was certified, granting women the right to vote and marking it a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for gender equality. And whereas Women's Equality Day commemorates not only the achievements of the suffrage movement, but also serves as a reminder of the work still needed to ensure full equality for all women in every aspect of American life, social, political, economic, and cultural. And whereas women of all backgrounds have made significant and lasting contributions to the success, prosperity, and progress of our nation, state, and local communities, serving as leaders, innovators, educators, caregivers, and advocates for justice. And whereas our community is stronger, more vibrant, and more resilient because of the achievements and leadership of women and girls across generations. And whereas the city of Duval reaffirmed its commitment to advancing gender equity and ensuring that all individuals, regardless of gender, have equal access to opportunity, safety, and representation. And whereas Women's Equality Day is an opportunity for all of us to celebrate the progress we have made, acknowledge the inequities that remain, and renew our dedication to building a just and inclusive society for future generations. Now, therefore, I, Amy Oberlander, Mayor of the City of Duval, do hereby proclaim August 26, 2025 as Women's Equality Day in the City of Duval, and encourage all residents to reflect on the importance of gender equity, honor the trailblazers of the past, and support efforts that advance equality for all. And just a side note, this is more critical and crucial than ever in our country as we see attempts becoming more unveiled to take away, in particular, access to voting, which will predominantly affect women in our country and impact women's ability to seek elected office, as well as be in elected office and pursue all of the freedoms that were fought and so many people died for in our country. So just want to make that note. If folks aren't aware of some of the efforts that are going on, it's pretty drastic. And that constitutional amendment is potentially at risk. So thank you for that. All right. And then we have Labor Day. I do not have, oh, there it is. Already switched them out. We have a proclamation for Labor Day. Whereas Labor Day, first celebrated in 1882 and established as a federal holiday in 1894, honors the contributions of American workers to the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our nation. And whereas the labor movement has played a vital role in securing rights and protections for working people, such as the 40-hour work week, weekends, safe working conditions, and fair wages, helping to shape a more equitable society. And whereas the observance of Labor Day provides an opportunity to recognize the dedication, skill, and resilience of the American workforce, including those in Duval and throughout the Snoqualmie Valley who contribute daily to the growth and vibrancy of our local economy and community. And whereas workers in every field, education, healthcare, construction, retail, public safety, technology, public service, the trades, and beyond are the backbone of our city, and their efforts deserve our appreciation and respect. And whereas the City of Duval is proud to support policies and practices that promote dignity in work, economic opportunity, and fair treatment for all employees and their families. Now therefore, I, Amy Okerlander, Mayor of the City of Duval, do hereby proclaim September 1st, 2025 as Labor Day in the City of Duval, and encourage all residents to honor the working people who make our city and country thrive, and to reflect on the importance of fairness, respect, and opportunity in the workplace. And this is yet another one that I never thought in my life that we would have to acknowledge that these rights and freedoms and equity and support that so many people fought and died for are at risk. And the agencies that have been founded over decades in our country are currently being dismantled to take away workers' protections. And that puts every community and every family at risk every day their family members go to work. And so I just want to also acknowledge that and ask folks to pay attention to what's going on and speak up for all of the policies that have been passed, affirmed by the courts, et cetera, that are now being torn down, that take away those opportunities for fair work weeks and safe working standards. In particular, the effort to institute child labor in the state of Florida is one prime example that people need to be very aware of. And with that, we'll go on to comments from the audience. We do not have any members of the audience here today. So we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Moving on to the mayor's report, I just want to commend our city staff for an absolutely fantastic festival season, music, et cetera, this summer. I think this is the best one that we've ever had. Rita Moreno in particular worked herself crazy to do everything that she did, and our community has expressed sincere, deep appreciation for all of the events that have happened this summer. City Administrator McNabb had a large hand in that, as did many, many others of our staff throughout every department in the city. It takes a strong team to pull off everything that has happened this summer, and they did it extraordinarily well. I also want to thank in particular for the half-day music festival to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Summer Stage. It was a toasty day, but as the day went on, the park got more and more crowded. And we had a good group of diverse community members present. So thank you for all of that fantastic work. It was a great way to celebrate 25 years and see our cultural programs continue to expand in a way that they never have within our community. And with that, I will move on to the city administrator's report.
Great, thank you, everyone. The members of the audience who may be watching. Cynthia McNabb, City Administrator. And we will go ahead and get started with the City Administrator report by turning it over to Director Leshevsky to give the Public Works update.
Hello again, everyone. Steve Leniszewski, Public Works. Okay, and you all still hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So just a quick two short slides this week. Storm cleaning is underway. That is a Vector truck, again, cleaning every storm catch basin in the city. And we did have some, I didn't give a shout out. I think it was already done in social media and whatnot, but local Boy Scout troop did a lot of stenciling on the storm drain inlets in some of the spaces around 150th in kind of the middle part of town. So they did a big bunch of work a couple weekends ago. So storm system is getting the love it deserves. Striping on our roads will occur next week. And then in general, all roads get restriped as they are. Fog lines white, center direction lines yellow, or skip, which I don't think we have any skip yellow left. And then yellow fog line and bike lane. The image on the top of the slide, we are changing the configuration of 150th when you get east of 282nd as you go east towards the high school. So that will all look as the new striping does on 150th from 275th up to 282nd. So that'll be a great improvement. Quite surprised to see on the warmer days how many people are out late walking and biking in town, which is great to see. Judd Park is getting a couple new features. Those are budgeted items. We have some space in the park itself. Each piece of equipment has a certain distance it's supposed to have for safe play and safety reasons and whatnot. So those are coming. They should be here. I was out of the office today, so I'm not sure if they arrived, but they will be going in once school starts and there's a little less activity at Judd Park. So those are models of what is going to be there. A couple of climbing things for the younger group of kids for that park. We will probably also, we have another meeting between now and this event, but working on the water system and the one project at the tank. We will be doing some flushing. We are flushing out our model, pun intended, and making sure as we go forward with design that things as they sit today are working as we expect, and we're getting kind of flows and volumes that we think. But we will be doing some flushing, and that will sometimes can cause side effects in the homeowners' taps. So bubbly water or cloudy water or discolored water. Our pipes are made of cast iron or ductile iron, so they do give off a tinge of orange here and there. So we'll put some social media out for that. So that's coming beginning of September. Next slide. And then on to kind of the engineering side of the house. So paving is wrapped up for the most part, just striping to go down. Not a lot of, we had, a little higher tonnage on asphalt, a little lower cost on some major repairs. So that worked out really well. They did a nice job. The rapid flashing beacon should be up at Cherry Valley and 3rd before school starts. So everything is going as planned. And it does take about 3 weeks once you lay down new asphalt before you can actually affix permanent striping, or it won't stay and adhere to the new pavement for very long. That is it for my slides. Any questions for Public Works?
Councilmember Nefflin?
Yeah, I live sort of near 144th, and a little tiny segment of 278 was paved. I don't know if you're familiar with that. There was a curb that used to separate sort of a little bit of a sidewalk. That was scraped off, it looks like, with some kind of scraper, and it left pretty deep gouges. And I'm not sure if there's gonna be striping or something to fill in those deep gouges when they scraped the curb off. I just can see a bicyclist or a scooter just flipping off because they fall into the divot.
Yeah, no, we had one comment over the weekend. So all land restoration will occur this week or next. So every bit of asphalt adjacent to grass or bark, that'll all get repaired. And then there is concrete extruded curb that does go back in the places that it was removed. So there's still have to do work. But yeah, the bulk of the project though is done. But yeah, it'll get tidied up and it'll be great.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions for Director Laniszewski? Thank you.
Great, we'll move on to, thank you, Director Laniszewski. We'll move on to the community development update from Director Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and our city attorney in person. Last week, I think it was last week, or maybe the week before at this point, we presented at the chamber meeting, it was actually a really good opportunity. I have a couple of slides from that, and then a couple of slides from here. Last week, Planning Commission took its annual tour of projects within the city, so that was a really good tour. We looked at 3 sites. The 3 pictures over here are from the D.R. Horton project, where it shows you essentially 3 different times on 3 different lots what happens when they dig for a foundation, essentially, and how much work it really is and what it looks like. We were pretty lucky that we actually got to see 3 right next to one another where they were in 3 basic phases. So that was fun to see that. We have a pre-application meeting this week, actually tomorrow, for a mixed-use project on 143rd. It's 2 stories residential and 1 story of commercial retail. Next week, we have design review for the Main Street project, and that's the project at Duval Village. So we're super excited about that. We're finishing up the staff report now, and then we'll go to hearing after we go through the Planning Commission process. Late last week, we issued the notice of complete application for the James Society. And that particular project is right behind the Duval Market on that vacant lot. inspections and plan review. You know, they're busy this time of year. We will start to see kind of a ramp down a little bit as we get into wet weather. So everybody's trying to get a ton of work done. Next slide. So this was just one of the slides that we did at the chamber meeting. So we were asked to go to the chamber meeting to talk essentially about signage and tenant improvements and sidewalk cafes. And so as part of our partnership with the chamber, we created some new kind of just informational trifolds and checklists that our business community could use. But we did go through kind of the core requirements of a couple of different types of signage where we're seeing some issues where we get code enforcement requests. Next slide. This is just a copy of one of them. We did one for temporary signs, which are really game boards, banners, and grand opening events. And then we also obviously provided a QR code, so if somebody wanted to go on right now or keep it, they could. Next slide. We talked a little bit about, you know, what is the grand opening and event display and is a permit required? So we walked the group through that as well. Next slide. And then this was the work really of the building department, which is creating a tenant and like a checklist. And what happens is for that, we would go through with anybody that is coming in to open a business that wants to do a tenant improvement or needs a tenant improvement for their type of use, whether it's a change of use or even a new building. And what we do is we'll have like a required field and then a not applicable field. And so we'll go through them. Here's what would be applicable to your particular tenant improvement, and here's the things that wouldn't. So hopefully that will be helpful. We're getting that up on the website right now so that it's a tool along with the other documents that we've updated in the last month. Next slide. Sidewalk cafes. Honestly, and Cynthia our city administrator can attest to this. I'm like, everybody should have a sidewalk cafe. It increases the vibrancy of a community. So we talked a little bit about that. But we also talked about like, hey, let's get a permit. And why do we have to get a permit? Because they're technically within a right of way or required internal pathway. And then there are certain material requirements. And then there's also another requirement, although it's not our requirement, it's state's requirement. If you serve alcohol in those areas, then you have other particular requirements. And for the most part, it's really about signage and then also fencing around that particular area. Overall, like I said, I thought it was a really good opportunity for our department. And we also at that meeting requested assistance on our advisory committee for our sign code update. So we'll be communicating with them here in the next couple of weeks to see if we can get a couple of volunteers for that committee. Thank you.
I think there's one more slide.
Oh, is there one more slide? Oh, shoot, sorry. Thank you, Cynthia. So community development work, we are working on co-housing. We just finished our first draft of that. We also have our parking first draft complete. We are working on our zoning map and our one new zoning designation out of our comp plan, and then our land use permit entitlement procedure. So we're making progress, not quite as fast as we'd like to, but we're going to create a work plan so that we can make sure and get that work done timely. Then obviously we're working through the comp plan certification process.
All right, questions for Director Thomas? Okay. I will give the quick finance department update. They were all in a OpenGov budget module user group today. Down in Puyallup. So Director McMinn has just developed a really nice cohort of OpenGov users that she connects with regularly, and OpenGov is convening more and more folks in the state to learn from each other. So they were there today in Puyallup to talk about different modules and how the OpenGov product works here in Washington State with public organizations. And then I'll turn it over to our clerk, Mr. Botero.
Good evening, John Vatero, City Clerk. So we are done, almost done with FirstNet. The FirstNet team came over and helped with the deployment. And them, along with Kelsey and Jonathan, helped with the deployment of it. We still have only a very small number of phones that we still need to do, so we encourage you to please go to City Hall to switch phones if you haven't done so already. And also, if you still have your Verizon phone, to please give it to us, hopefully by no later than mid next week. We are actually selling those back to FirstNet so we can recoup some of the money for the equipment. So please stop by City Hall to get your new phone. We'll get you a prettier one, I promise. It's a lot faster too. So we just want to make sure we close this loop with FirstNet, and we also finish up our relationship with Verizon. And that is about it for me. Thank you.
Any questions for our clerk? Okay. So I'll start with the bad news. The city did not receive the King County Youth and Amateur Sports Grant that we put together for the mountain bike area in our open space. I went and looked at the scoring sheet, and then tomorrow I will attend a seminar on who did win and kind of what criteria they use. But looking at our scoring sheet, we scored quite low on equity and social justice, which put our application in the bottom third of applications. So that doesn't mean it's the end of trying to get that asset to the community. We'll keep looking at different grant opportunities and different ways to bring mountain biking to Duval. But for this round, we did not get that award. So Summer Stage ended on August 9th. We had a total attendance of over 4,700 folks, with the highest being 13 till midnight. We had almost 1,700 people in McCormick Park that night. So it is the highest total year of any year of Summer Stage. It was a really wonderful summer, and thank you to all of you who came. Thank you to the police department who embraced the Friendship Bracelet Challenge. And I think between Director Thomas and I, at least 200 friendship bracelets were put into production by her and I, and kids at that concert. Both murals are, if you've been walking around north end of town, both of our murals are nearing completion. The one on Main will be done tomorrow, and the one up on First in Virginia will be done next week. And we're going to do a community sign up for paint days to help paint and finish that Greetings from Duval mural. It looks beautiful if you haven't seen it yet. There's a picture coming, so. Duval Flash Day is a Friday. This was a program that was funded by the Get Active, Stay Active grant through Councilmember Perry. That grant also funded a family game night. So we'll be putting together the programming in September for hosting an outdoor family game night with that funding before the weather hit. And then finally, you all have seen the passports, hopefully. They came from our Washington Board of Tourism grant. The Harvest Festival is being planned. It's amazing. So lots of advertisement of that will be coming soon. It is September 12th and 13th. The 12th will be an outdoor movie. We're showing Babe to kind of go along with, agriculture and harvest. While that movie is going on, there's going to be basket weaving and scarecrow building. So lots of activities planned for that week.
No, are we?
There.
Oh my gosh.
Slide.
So the picture to the left is the selfie that the band 13 till midnight took of the audience behind them. And that was actually after several hundred people left. This was at the end of the night. And then, the two, things in the middle are where it currently stands, these were taken today by Rita. Are murals that are going in and they look amazing. And then the flyer for Summer Splash Day on Friday. Next slide. Yesterday we held our annual staff awards, picnic. And so I just wanted to highlight some of the awards that were given. We had 4 service awards, Officer Luke Hill and Eric Bremer, who works in Public Works, received their 5-year awards. And then Sergeant Clark and Troy Davis, who works in planning, had 10 years of service. As I mentioned, I think in the last meeting, the employees get to nominate each other for the Above and Beyond Award. We had 21 separate employees nominated by their fellow peers, but the 4 listed here got many emailed in requesting that they be nominated for the Above and Beyond Peer Award, including Chief Keller. Also Joe Chris, who's our maintenance supervisor, our public works supervisor, Cody, who is just an amazing person who works in public works, and nothing is too small to ask him for help. And then Brian, our finance manager. And then I keep track of the kudos that people drop by my office or tell me about different employees throughout the year. And so I collect those and every year do a city administrator award for contributions to a positive workplace. And so Kelsey, here in the clerk department, Jonathan Steinbeck, Maria Raza, both in City Hall, and then Joe Pennock in Public Works, who, if you know Joe and you came to the Touch a Truck event, he was a very jolly, very happy Public Works lead, helping kids have fun times with all of our trucks. Next slide. We did hold a cornhole competition, and the winners were Steve, as not at all unanticipated, Sergeant Clark, Ben, who is in the blue hat, that is one of our engineers, and Luke, our emergency management coordinator. And then thank you to the mayor for coming to our event and saying such nice things about our staff. We really appreciate it. And then final slide is a request. So as part of what we learned from our consultants at our last special session regarding elections, one of the first stages before you even think about a levy is talking to the community. And so I've started to draft what a potential levy community outreach plan would look like. And I've identified these different groups, but wanted to bring it to council. If there are any other interested parties or community member groups that you think are not on this list, that you think should have either a workshop or engagement plan for them, please let me know. I am going to be out from September 10th through the 22nd, but when I come back, I want to begin those engagements and those workshops for different community members to talk about their hopes, their dreams, their wants in terms of funding for police and parks. So this will be in on the website, my PowerPoint presentation. So you have lots of opportunity to look at it, but just a start to think about who you all might want to reach out to and learn about what they would like to see for city funding. And with that, I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Nathan?
Yeah, I was just wondering on the, I think you said equity and social justice was where we scored very low. I guess I'd be really curious about like how they phrased the criteria. So I don't know if that's something that could be shared. I'm just, because I have a feeling that same category of scoring may come up in the future in other grants we might request. And so the one reason I wanted to bring that up is when we had the representative from King County Parks, we talked specifically about equity, and I was trying to understand what equity meant in relation to the grants. And one of the ways after the conversation that he seemed to agree is that we don't have very many King County parks out here. And so from an equity standpoint, City of Duval is not served by
very much, of county parks. So I think that that was one way they described equity, and so I'm just trying to understand if that portion was identified as us having an inequitable situation here.
Yeah, I can respond to how we drafted the grant application. So a lot of the material that I submitted were screenshots of parks, screenshots of accessible mountain bike trails in our area. And the framing was really that Duval is underserved from an equity standpoint in terms of those amenities. For whatever reason, that was not compelling to the scores in terms of an equity justification, but most of our presentation was around being underserved from an amenity and asset perspective.
Okay.
And I would add to that, the King County has an equity, race and social justice strategic plan. So that's the best place to go and look for where these criteria come from the grants. And not having parks is not really going to be high on that criteria because we are a very affluent community. So we don't have industrial lands near us. We don't have train tracks going through our town that harm health and safety. We don't have redlining, historic redlining in our community that exists anymore. There's lots of factors that go into it. And geographic equity with one of the most affluent cities in the county is not going to be a strong argument. I'll just be very honest. That's not what the equity and social justice program with the county is all about. It's about creating real equity and fair opportunity for all residents. And I think that I would bet that if you read through the plan, you would see that our demographics don't really meet that test as it stands today.
Yeah, but I'm attending can't remember exactly what the training session is called, but it's basically the debrief for the particular grant cycle. And I'll learn more about who won, why, if they had particularly compelling arguments. So that debrief is tomorrow.
And with that, we have a closed session under our. Oh, sorry, we do have council reports. Does anyone have any council reports? Councilmember McHenry.
Just super short, between National Night Out and Summer Stage, all the amazing events and outreach to the community this summer. Summer's going way too fast. Just want to thank every staff member because each one of those events was just incredible and it would not have happened without the staff. And so this summer felt really magical, albeit short, like I said, because I'm already, a little miserable about school starting so soon. But just thank you to everybody. It was great.
Councilmember Naplan.
Another quick shout out to the Roots of Duval walking tour. If you haven't had a chance to go on it, it's really, it's just really special. I think I've been on it 3, maybe 4 times, and each time I learn new things, and it's just kind of a neat thing. So if you haven't done it, I think it's offered next month one more time, the last time this year. So.
Councilmember Rowland.
I participated today in an SEA call for the MID program, the Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Behavioral Health Program from the county. And I guess I just wanted to mention it because their funding is expiring at the end of this year. And so there will likely be a ballot measure soon to renew for the next 9 years. From what I've seen and from the data that they shared on the phone, it's a highly effective program. I didn't write down all the statistics. I'm looking at my phone because I made some notes. I didn't write down all the statistics. I know they serve over 20,000 people each year. And one of the stats that they shared was the measure of re-incarceration for people that are in the program versus not. And they had it was a 60-some% reduction in re-incarceration for folks that were in the program versus were not. And incarceration is one of many metrics that they track. I mean, there was substance abuse, there was promoting rapid support in emergency needs. And so it seems to be a highly effective program, and it's going to come with funding again soon. And so I just wanted to mention that it for the county is a 0.1% tax, and it'll be for the next 9 years. And I guess the one other thing about that is they have to they will have to somewhat reconfigure the program since they're going to have a new executive, or likely to have a new executive come this next election. And so while they're working on funding, they're going to kind of wait to see what the new executive's priorities are to retool the program. So I just want to share that.
Thank you. City Administrator McNabb.
I forgot I had two things that didn't make it into the city administrator report. The first one is that we have, thank you, to our deputy city clerk Kelsey, we have. These are the samples of the employee handbook and our loop guide, so all that work is now visible and touchable, and it's very exciting. To have this available to our employees. So we'll be distributing those once we get our proofs done. And then as Rita and I were kind of planning through the end of the year for different items, we realized that there is a council meeting on November 4th, which is election night. We have in the past had council on election night, but we haven't had it when we have mayor and council. And so my question to you all is, would you like to cancel that meeting for that night and focus on the election instead?
Yes. Yes, sure. And there's a lot going on that night outside of Duval as well. So I think that people are gonna be very, very busy.
I'm seeing a head nod, so Clerk Botera, would you please note that we will cancel the meeting for the 4th? Thank you. Sorry, I didn't get everything in the city administrator report. Forgot I had sticky notes.
Thank you, City Administrator. And now we will move on to closed session under RCW 42.30.140 sub 4 sub A. And how much time do we need this for this one tonight? 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. So we'll
About 10 minutes. We could go 10 and come earlier. So Kelsey,
All right, city council, are you ready, Clark?
Yeah.
City council has returned from closed session, and with that, we move on to new business. First item of new business is agenda bill 25-36. Duval Police Association memorandum of understanding for discussion and or decision. City Administrator McDowell.
Hi, good evening. So you have an agenda bill in your packet regarding a 1-year rollover with the Duval Police Association. This will keep the terms and conditions of their collective bargaining agreement as the same throughout 2026, with the exception of a COLA increase. You may recognize the COLA increase that's in the MOU. It reflects what is in the same methodology that we use for our Teamsters contract. And then following the rollover, we'll go into full bargaining with our police association, either late summer or early fall of next year for a 3-week contract. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember McHenry.
I move to approve agenda bill 25-36, authorizing the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding for a collective bargaining agreement rollover for 2026 with the Duval Police Officers Association.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember McHenry and seconded by Councilmember Supple to approve agenda bill 25-36. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda bill 25-37, update to the Duval Municipal Code 5.01 business license for discussion and or decision. Clerk Otero.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, John Butler, City Clerk. What we're bringing is an update that was rolled out by the legislature regarding business licenses. So as of right now, anyone wishing to apply for a business license, they have an extension of $2,000. The legislature increased that to $4,000, and we are seeking to update that. Also, the legislature created a mechanism so that we don't have to keep updating that every few years, but there is a system in place in which that number, the exemption number, keeps getting updated every few years. That will require a small change to municipal code section 501, which there was a copy in the packet. And although the change will take place on January the 1st, 2026, because we work with the Department of Revenue on their portal, we do have to let them know that the change was made through an ordinance so that they can reprogram it and it can become effective as of the date. So it's fairly straightforward, but we are asking for council's approval so that we can update the municipal code when it comes to that exception, as well as increases in the future.
Thank you, Clerk. Is council ready to make a motion this evening? Councilmember McHenry.
I move to approve agenda bill 25-37, approving ordinance 1339.
It's been moved by Councilmember McHenry, and seconded by Councilmember Kufelt to approve agenda bill 25-37. Any further discussion? Councilmember Naplan.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Do we anticipate that there will be some revenue loss due to this? And do we know what it would be?
That's something that I did not take a look at, to be honest. It is simply a change that is being made along with all the other cities that use the Department of Revenue's business licensing service. So if we want to continue using that portal and be under using that mechanism, is a change that we would have to make, but I'll be more than happy to speak to Beth about it, or Cynthia, or if you have anything to add to it.
I haven't looked into the question whether or not what the revenue impact to the changes. I mean, from our perspective, it's kind of one of those we're being told to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I intend to vote yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we have to. I just was really kind of curious. I didn't know how many smaller businesses have been paying in to purchase business licenses, and if we would lose it.
Business licenses don't make the city any money at all. We're lucky if it covers costs of staff. So, to process and manage that system. So, I would call it a neutral.
Something
at
of
best,
the sort.
or de minimis.
Thanks.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. And with that, next on our agenda, we have two more executive sessions under 40 RCW 42.30.110 sub 1 sub B. And City Administrator, how much time would we expect for these two?
Do we have Director Lanashevsky on?
We could.
Oh.
He magically appeared.
So item K will take 2 minutes or less, and then item L is probably at least 15.
Okay.
And I
So let's see.
think we should probably start with that, and then we could add to it.
Let's start with 20 minutes, and so we will adjourn to executive session at 7:53 PM. And come back at 7:13 or have notice to the. a couple of folks at the restroom, but I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order from executive session and move us into our existing business municipal civic campus site selection discussion. Director Lenishevsky. Oh, he may not be on yet. Oh, he's raised his hand.
You can move him. There he is. There we go. Great.
We'll also need a motion to.
Oh, right.
You can just do that now.
Yes, please.
Mayor, I move to extend past 9 or 9:30, sorry.
That's good.
I move to extend the meeting past 9 PM.
Second.
Was there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say no. Motion passes with Councilmember Supple and Schaefer in the restroom. All right, let's go for it.
Okay, John, can you re-add the folks back to the meeting?
Yes.
So Julie's there. Diego is Makers. Ian is Ian. I don't think Beth wants to come to this. I think she's watching though. Hi, Beth. Okay. So I think, and if you could let Ian share his slide deck.
Okay.
All
Here
right.
we go.
So thank you, Mayor and Council, Steve Lenishevsky, Public Works. So we have our team here who's been working on our citywide site selection services contract for the city. An evaluation of the city's spaces and needs, and as we were moving, or as we would move forward in the future on a city hall site, they've been evaluating our opportunities to co-combine with the police station, city hall, individual buildings by themselves, on spaces we own, on spaces around town. So we've been doing a lot of work in the background. We have had several meetings with staff. We have Ian, Diego, and Julie here, and they're gonna run through kind of what we've been up to in a little more high-level way to get you to see what's all been put into this and help the city get some information it needs to make some decisions for the future. So I will let Ian kick us off.
Thank you, Steve. I will do a quick intro here as soon as I see the screen share get rolling. There we are. Thanks for having us. We are excited to share our progress on your site selection study. Our intention this evening is to give you an update on our progress, talk about some advantages and disadvantages with co-locating your city hall and police station versus having them in separate sites, and then outline next steps. Here is a snapshot of our team. Diego, Ian, and I are the Makers crew leading the study. We're facility planners. Cynthia is our real estate advisor. We're working with Daryl, who's providing engineering, and John, who's providing architectural advice. We have three main project goals. The first is to take a look and, from our perspective, identify the preferred site or sites for a new police and city hall, considering the trade-offs of co-locating versus separation for those two facilities. We are also, number two, confirming that the city properties adjacent to Big Rock ball fields make sense for the maintenance yard and are a great choice for the city, and then evaluate the north versus the south options on either side of the ball fields. And then finally, we want to outline the next steps and try to frame up the path forward so that the city has an action plan to implement the outcomes of the ARC facility plan and the Burke fiscal sustainability plan to investments in taking a look at these issues that the city has made in recent years. So those studies, the key outcomes are the following. You do need to replace the police
station, city hall, and the maintenance yards facilities, all three, they cannot cost effectively adapt to serve your community into the future. They're at the end of life. They're way too small. We'll go over those details in a minute. While you're doing it, you should strive to consolidate staff and buildings. For example, your city administrative functions are split between several. We'll talk about that more later as well. You should identify ways to close the gap between the bonding capacity and the police and city hall investment costs, or determine a financing strategy that will exceed the councilmanic bond amount. And then that you will be able to fund the maintenance yard through utilities fees. So those were the two kind of financial evaluation components.
Great, I'll take it from there. Thank you, Julie. And just a brief actually interlude for me here, that we want to talk about those existing facilities, and especially these ones that are downtown. I'm going to hand it over to Diego in a moment, but just acknowledging some of these key facilities that are in play. You've got the police department over there sharing the site with the Depot Park, a very popular trail, with a lot of traffic in and out there. You've got the maintenance yard just due north of there. You've got Duval Visitor Center, or DVC as it's affectionately known, it seems, where you all are tonight, of course. The rec center just down the road. We had an opportunity to visit that building as well with Steve and Gavin, and City Hall there in the corner right downtown. And I'm going to hand it over to Diego to talk to us about these facilities and why they're probably due for replacement.
Thanks, Ian. So starting with the Public Works Maintenance Yard, this facility is cramped and in poor condition with severely inadequate circulation, exacerbating what is already hazardous work. I'd highlight this image of the backhoe on the bottom right, which needs to maneuver uncomfortably close to the crew office to access material piles in the yard. Inappropriate shop and crew workspaces also impede work and quality of life for the maintenance crew. Our recommendation for this site is to pursue the construction of a modernized yard on the southern parcel of the Big Rock ball fields. To the police station, there are issues with site access and security. The police department only has one point of egress that could easily be blocked. You've also got some awkward workspaces and unsecured IT infrastructure. The server pictured here also on the bottom right is completely exposed in a hallway that serves as the copy room, and suboptimal evidence and locker room spaces are too cramped to function into the future. Our recommendation is to relocate to a more accessible site that can be made more secure, to invest in a purpose-built facility that meets accreditation standards, opening the door to more grant opportunities. And we know that your police department would prefer that this is done on a site outside the downtown core. The City Hall, the Duval Visitor Center, and the rec. On the administrative end, your facilities are scattered and poorly suited to their current use or any future growth. The space for the council chambers and executive sessions at the visitor center are poorly defined from community use, and at City Hall, there is limited space for visitors and parking. Our recommendation is to invest in a purpose-built City Hall with distinct spaces for council and community. The preferred location is downtown, but off the retail core, as to preserve those spaces for commercial businesses, though opinions do vary. Key considerations for City Hall sites include supporting economic vitality, accessibility and convenience, and the symbolic civic importance of City Hall's location. And then lastly, these sites, some of which were already mentioned, form a portfolio of assets Duval could divest from to finance construction or use as locations for new facilities to lower costs. They include the rec center, the Duval Visitor Center, parcels of the Big Rock ball fields, the Big Rock 2-acre parcel that the city owns in the southern end of the city, and City Hall.
Thanks, Diego. Another piece of the equation is thinking about how these facilities, the police and the City Hall, could be one facility, and some of the options there. On our team, Julie mentioned John Pete works the architectural firm FFA. They specialize in this kind of combined civic campus, and prepared these slides originally, which I'll be presenting now. Your city hall, your police, naturally they have different purposes, right? And they have different characteristics. City hall, you've got a range of customer needs. You've got people coming here. It's going to be very public facing. You've got different kinds of events. Some need to be publicly accessible. And it's also wants to be a welcoming space for community partnerships and connectivity. Your police department, different kinds of activities happening there. You need to protect people's victims and witnesses' privacy and security. You have stringent standards for sensitive data and security related to police activities. And it's also, as Steve mentioned, that this is an essential facility, which means that there are more stringent construction standards that add to project costs. It's very important. If there's an earthquake, this facility will remain standing. But that's just one of the differences here between these two kinds of buildings. Combining them into one building has some benefits and some challenges. You can have some shared spaces, your lobby, your break rooms, your maybe multi-purpose conference rooms. And staff are interacting. Maybe there's more of an opportunity to cultivate a shared culture between different departments. You will have some efficiencies of scale in the building, the way the building is put together. Also, maybe your site components will take up less space if you're just doing it once or they're combined. And I think when we were really trying to think about this, one of the things that really kind of stood out when you're thinking about two facilities projects, possibly in different locations, versus one combined facility project, is just kind of their focus is something that is a limited commodity. And I think certainly my relationship with my smartphone underscores that. And I think it's true of cities as well, of the public, of staff, of electeds. And it's not to say that nobody's incapable of pulling off two facilities projects, but there are complicated projects. And so there may be something to be said for just doing a one and done. We're doing a facility and this is it. And we're going to meet our needs for these really important departments for decades to come. There are some challenges also with the combined facility option. The site circulation is very tricky when you think about all the different reasons that people are visiting here and how they may need to be separated, again, for safety and security and privacy needs and public accessibility. It takes a very thoughtful approach to the layout, to balancing those different concerns. And again, that complexity and construction costs it could add costs as well for having the essential facility construction. Like I think a lot of the things that and I mentioned this in the executive session, there's not a super clear best option here. We think it's got a mix of benefits and challenges to go to the combined facility route. Nothing is a huge clear decision driver here. We think it's a little bit a matter of preferences and community priorities. The costs are, we think at this level, roughly equivalent. You save a little bit in terms of your efficiency of scale. You spend a little bit more in terms of your building construction standards. There are public safety grants, we believe, that could go towards funding a new police station or the police component of a combined facility. And in that case, may be able to go towards some shared spaces as well, potentially. And then there's also the point, as I mentioned, about the sustained amount of effort that involved in doing one combined project versus two separate projects. Another option when we're talking about a co-located facility would be a campus, a civic campus. This would be where you have two different buildings on the same site. They could share some utilities, maybe some parking, things like that. It mitigates some of the challenges and still provides a lot of the benefits of that combined facility. You can have a one-stop shop for customers, a place that people can go to meet their civic needs, specific functions. You still may have some cost efficiencies. You don't have to build a city hall like essential facility standards. The circulation can be helped, especially if you have a site with on a corner lot or with multiple different access points. That would be easier. But you probably will need a little bit of a bigger site than that combined building. The top image here is a combined building that's down in Oregon City that again, our team member John Pete worked on the design of a few years ago. And in the lower image, there is an example in Montlake Terrace where you've got a civic campus, city hall, police, and the neighbors. Moving along, we have been looking at a lot of different options, the sites that we discussed in the executive session, some of which are city owned.
Can we pause for a second? Can we pause? We can't refer to anything that was discussed in executive session. So let's keep this focused on this presentation.
Thank you for the clarification. We evaluated these two facilities in different locations. We had started out with a short list of 13 sites that were within city limits with appropriate zoning, appropriate sizing for the facilities. And we're showing general areas here on the map, referring to, well, first of all, we have the city-owned sites, the Public Works Maintenance Yard, which would become available once the city constructs a new maintenance yard in a different location. And then the Big Rock 2-acre parcel, which is located on Big Rock on the southern end of the city, and is a city-owned site that is currently vacant. There were 3 privately owned sites that we thought were also good contenders, and we looked at options for siting city hall and police facilities there as well. We consultant team looking at all these options. There were a couple that we thought were the best and that we would like to present to the council and to the public, but these are far from the only options, and we present them to you just as we think as well, because we have just to present our honest opinion about how we think it shakes out. But as I've noted in this presentation, there are good options. Duval is blessed with a large property portfolio. You have many different city-owned sites. You don't even need to go to the private market. There are also some private market sites available. The city is small enough that the locational considerations are not an overriding factor, or is something that we see sometimes in larger cities. So it's in some sense, this is a good situation because you are embarrassed with riches. But on the other hand, it makes it a little bit harder to say what the right, most correct course is to take. And so with that, we'll show the top 2 recommendations that we have after our analysis of some of the purchase costs, potentially the site work potential costs, some of the options for existing city properties, and the locational characteristics. We think that that there are 2 that we thought could be most beneficial to the city. That again check all the boxes: good location, affordable, and some other good considerations. One of those is a separated one with the city hall is the red star here at the maintenance yard site, and then the police facility down there at the Big Rock 2-acre site on the southern end of the city. And this is not the city hall at the maintenance yard site is not a new concept. This was something that was modeled at least back in 2014. So this is something that people have been thinking about for some time. The other option that we thought was one of the best was a combined at the Big Rock 2-acre site there with both city hall and police down there at that city-owned site on the southern end of the city. There are a number of other good options as well that may be worth consideration. We think some of the key questions here, or at least one of the key ones, is how important is it that City Hall is located downtown? And how beneficial, how important, how aligned with the city priorities is it for the City Hall and police to be located in the same location on a campus or in the same building? Coming up in this project, there will be a community survey to gauge priorities, community priorities about this. And then we'll come back to council again for another council briefing. And there'll be a final analysis summary report that pulls together everything we've learned and our recommendations for you all. We did want to ask you all if there was any other information that we can gather and present to you that would be helpful to you as you consider these decisions.
Councilmember Napoli?
I'm just curious if you have any examples of kind of a city of our size and kind of, we don't really have a huge commercial core, just a city of our size. Like, what are examples of actual city halls and police stations? Because some of the examples you showed were for much, much larger cities. So I think that would be helpful to just kind of envision what it would look like, what the scale of some of these buildings would be for kind of a much smaller city.
Certainly.
Councilmember. Oh, go ahead, Ian.
I just wanted to add that my colleague Julie Bassick has an extensive experience working with cities of all sizes on these kinds of facilities.
Yep, happy to bring those back.
Thank you. Councilmember Olin.
So I'm curious, in an effort to put personal biases aside, I'd be interested in any information or data that you have, pros and cons of having the city hall downtown versus moving it remotely. Is economic benefit obviously is one conversation. Are there cultural benefits one side or another, culturally for a town, having it downtown versus moving it away? Does that have an impact? Any data that you have around either option would be interesting.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else? Councilmember McHenry.
I mean, I'm mostly just looking forward to the community survey, to hear more about their priorities. I have a sense of what we'll hear. I wouldn't be shocked to hear pool a few times. But seriously, I mean, there are a lot of really great examples everywhere, of, city facilities that also have really neat features for the community. So I'm excited to see what the community says.
Councilmember Kufelt, Schaefer, Supple.
Good.
I do have one thing, we talk a lot about the police department and city hall, and then the differences between construction of a single facility for both versus the opportunity for co-location or a campus. One of the things I'm not hearing is where the city is in desperate need of as well is a space that can function as an emergency operations center. And that is something that is super critical out here because we are become an island many times. And having been mayor of the city during some major emergencies, not having an emergency operations center has been very detrimental, and made it a lot more difficult to do that critical work. So I would love to, in a future meeting, hear some of those considerations for the differences in those types of facilities, to help guide a better decision.
Yeah, Mayor, I think some of the suite of elements we're not saying in certainty, right? You've got a gathering space, obviously a council chamber is something for the community to rent. I know John and Kelsey handle the Rose Room and all of the glory that comes with renting that space. It's tough. We don't have a lot of spaces that fit a lot of needs. So we know some sort of gathering, EOC, EMC, whatever we get, the community space at a city hall and some gathering spaces in general, aside from just the need of conducting city business.
Thank you, Director Laniszewski. I figured as much, but just wanted to make sure it was vocalized.
We know emergency management is near and dear to your heart, so.
Yes, you do.
No one's forgetting it.
We've needed it more than we wanted to this last 8 years, that's for sure. Okay, anyone else have anything else for this one? All right. Steve,
Okay.
did you have any last words?
Yeah, no, we'll convene as a team and put some more work together and we'll be back. Like I said, nothing on the books for certainty yet, but we'll get some stuff turned around and get back at it.
Great, thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we have one last item of business this evening. We have one more executive session under RCW 42.30.110 sub 1 sub I. How long do you think we need for this one?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. And there are no expectation of action being taken after that executive session so for those attending online. You're free to go or watch the blank screen for a while. And if we go longer than 20 minutes, we'll let the clerk know, and that will be noticed to the public as well.
Council will now return from executive session at 10:08 PM. Council will now return from executive session at 10:23 PM. Council will now return from executive session at 10:38 PM.
All right, council has returned from executive session at 10:19 PM. There is no further business, so unless there are objections, I can't even talk now. We are adjourned.
Where's your gal?
Where?
Oh, okay.
I don't need a gavel to do that.